Before I invite our chief guest, Mr. Christopher, let us know what a great personality we have amongst us today. He is the spokesperson at the US Embassy in New Delhi. He previously served overseas as the Deputy Economic Counselor in US Embassy, Islamabad, the Economic Growth Unit Chief in US Embassy, New Delhi, and a Vice Consul in US Consulate General, Guadalajara, Mexico. He has served in Washington, D.C. as the Special Assistant for the Bureau of South and Central Asian Affairs, Senior Mekong Desk Officer in the Office of Mainland Southeast Asia, and as a Bangladesh Desk Officer at the Department of State. Before joining the Department of State, Mr. Christopher worked for Citi on Wall Street. He has bachelor's and master's degree in economics from the University of Southern California. He has studied for a year at the London School of Economics and graduated from Regis High School in New York City. I now invite Mr. Christopher to kindly address our new batch and share his valuable experience. Sir, all yours.
Good morning. I understand that you're at the start of your university journey this week. I guess last week was orientation, if I understand correctly. I'm jealous. I loved my time in university. Beyond the good times that I had with my friends and the great experiences of learning, those memories, what I learned, the friends that I have from university are still with me today. And I'm constantly in touch with those same friends at this point almost 2 decades later. And it's amazing, the colleagues that you'll meet, the friends that you'll meet, how they'll keep being a resource for you as you keep growing in your career. I'm in touch with my friends. I'm constantly asking questions of them, how they're working, what their experience is. And so the batch that you have here, I'm sure your batchmates won't just be your friends for the next few years, but hopefully you'll build some lifelong friendships here. And thank you very much to ITMI for the faculty here for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really lucky to be able to speak with you all today. So I'm going to take a few minutes to speak about the US-India relationship. That's what I specialize in here. But maybe after 5-10 minutes, you can have enough of just hearing me talk to you. I'd love to hear from you. Any questions? We can do a bit of an AMA, ask me anything. Whatever it is you're interested in about the United States or me or anything, I'm happy to answer any questions. So to start off on the US-India relationship, it is among the most consequential in the world. It's said oftentimes, but I truly believe it. This is, as you heard from my biography, my second assignment to the embassy in New Delhi. I've also worked on India and the United States. The future of the United States really hinges on India, and I also believe that India's future really hinges on the United States. And so I'm out here to try to bring our countries together and try to move things in the right direction. The White House, just a couple of weeks ago, called India an indispensable partner. And that's very true. We work together across the board, not just our government, but our people and our businesses as well. And so we have these strong and growing ties across all sorts of different relationships in space, on climate change, on a number of topics that I could get into today. But I'm going to focus on just 3 topics, which really limits us today, but I've got to keep it short, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about our government ties, a little bit about our economic ties, and a little bit about our people-to-people ties. President Biden said to Prime Minister Modi that there's so much that our countries can and will do together, and I am committed to making the US-India partnership among the closest we have on Earth. That sets the tone for how our government relations are. Our leaders are in constant communication, they meet with each other, they truly value each other's input and guidance and work very closely together. And it's not just the 2 leaders that we have today, it's thankfully been building over about 2 decades now. And it is from both parties, both major parties, in both countries. I know that there are a couple more parties in India than there are in the United States. I'm really jealous of the number of options that you have. I only get 2. But between the Democrats and Republicans in the United States, between the BJP and Congress here in India, there's bipartisan consensus in both countries that we want a stronger, closer, deeper relationship, and we've been working towards that over the last 2 decades. It started with President Clinton from the United States, a Democratic president, coming out here to meet Prime Minister Vajpayee, and between a Democrat and the BJP at the time, we formed what is sort of the foundation of our current relationship. It then moved to a Republican president, George Bush, then moved to an Indian Congress Prime Minister in Manmohan Singh, moved to a Democratic president in President Obama with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, and then to a Republican, well, first to a BJP Prime Minister in Narendra Modi with President Obama, then a Republican president with Donald Trump, now a Democratic president with President Biden with BJP Prime Minister Modi. You can see that as our countries go back and forth between the different parties, the relationship has continued to grow over these last 20 years, and we're expecting that to continue over the next 20 years and beyond. The commitment is not just among our leaders, it's the bureaucrats like myself, both in the United States and here in India. Our mission to India is one of the largest in the world, the U.S. mission. We have the embassy here in New Delhi, but we also have 4 consulates in Calcutta, Hyderabad, Chennai, and Mumbai. So we have people from the U.S. mission across the country engaging with schools and businesses and local governments in the different parts of the country as well. So we're not just here in Delhi, we're working together across the country. And we're working on a number of different institutions that we're building together. You've heard about the Quad, probably, the United States, India, Japan, and Australia. It's a new grouping where we believe that we, as the strongest powers in the Indo-Pacific, can come together to shape the rules-based order. We're 4 vibrant democracies that have loud, noisy democracies. It's not always perfect, but we believe in the free will and free choice of people, and that if we come up with a set of rules that everyone can compete under, that our people will thrive. And so the Quad has come together. It's still in its early stages, but we're working on humanitarian assistance, on disaster relief. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been working together, particularly the United States and India, on vaccinations as well. And so there are a number of projects we're taking up through the Quad. The other thing that's growing between our countries, between our governments, is our defense and military and security ties. We have the United States is the country that India holds more exercises with than any other. On the flip side, India is the country with whom the United States does more joint exercises than any other country. So our militaries work with each other more than any other country on earth. And so I know that there can be some things in the media on differences that we have in our views on security or military relations. I know that it's good for you as journalists and as future members of the press to come up with a little bit of friction in your stories, and we accept that. But know that there is this underpinning of cooperation that continues. As we become closer, we will continue to have some differences. That's going to happen. But this relationship is built on a strong foundation, on institutions, on military ties, on government ties that are here to outlast any of the disagreements that we might have in policy. Beyond our government ties, we have very strong economic ties. The U.S.-India trade relationship has really grown in recent years. It has, in fact, doubled over the last 7 years. That's pretty dramatic growth. It is now, or as of last year, $157 billion in trade between our countries. The United States is also the #1 buyer of Indian exports. We are your top customer, your top client. We buy more from you than anyone else. And the United States is also a top destination of Indian investment into the United States, as well as for U.S. investors here. So for Indian investors, more money goes to the United States for investment than any other country. For India, we're #3, but I don't fully buy it, because #1 is Mauritius. How many Mauritians are investing here? Not that many. They're largely shell companies that are in large part American companies, and the other is Singapore. Why Singapore? Because there is an investment agreement between New Delhi, or between India and Singapore, that gives some different benefits and breaks, and so a lot of U.S. companies are also routing through their subsidiaries in Singapore to invest here. So technically, we're number 3. I like to think that we're number 1 if you get rid of all of the technicalities. We're still working on that trade and investment relationship. We reconvened the Trade Policy Forum last November. We're hoping to get another one this year in 2022. We have the CEO Forum, which is a forum between CEOs of both of our countries. And there's good exchange between the CEOs of our countries. You might see major CEOs from Walmart, FedEx, Adobe, Lockheed, Boeing. These CEOs from the United States are flying out to India pretty regularly for meetings. And in fact, just overnight, I saw that Google and Alphabet's CEO was at the Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C. while we were sleeping. And in Washington as well, CII held an event with U.S. Congress. These are just 2 things that happened overnight while we were sleeping. And then on the institutional ties, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal was just in California last week for the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework meetings in Los Angeles. India has signed on to 3 pillars of that as a new area for our cooperation. Our chargé d'affaires of the U.S. Embassy was recently in Pune a couple of weeks ago at the Serum Institute, where a U.S. company, Novavax, was working with the Serum Institute on the creation of a new COVID-19 vaccine that was developed here and is now approved by the U.S. FDA for use in the United States. And then lastly, on the economic ties, I want to note that roughly 1/3 of all immigrant-founded startups in the United States are founded by Indians and Indian Americans. So really great economic ties. And then lastly, with those people-to-people ties, with all of the Indian entrepreneurs in the United States, we are very lucky in the United States to have over 4 million Indian Americans in the United States. In 2019, before COVID, we welcomed 15 million Indian visitors to the United States. We currently have about 200,000 Indian students at university campuses in the United States. And we just announced maybe 2 weeks ago, we just set a new record this year for most student visas we've ever given. We issued 82,000 visas to Indian students this year. Nearly 20% of international students in the United States are Indian. So we have really great links with the entrepreneurs and students and visitors coming to the United States. And we also have a lot of shared values. So we are the oldest and largest democracies of the world. We are incredibly diverse countries. We both have great respect for religious freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, which I know you all care about. These are really important values to us. And those are values that we're exchanging through our people-to-people ties. We have a new exchange that was just founded this year called the Gandhi King Scholarly Exchange that is named after 2 great leaders of our countries, 2 leaders of nonviolence in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Mahatma Gandhi. And we have, what might be interesting to you, a very large Fulbright Nehru program. In other countries, we just call it the Fulbright program, but it's jointly shared here in India. And this is a program of scholarships from the government of the United States and the government of India from people for our countries to go study postgraduate degrees in the United States. So should you finish your degrees here and have an interest in coming to the United States, there are these opportunities available for you, as well as an organization that we have at the embassy called Education USA that can offer you guidance on how to apply to graduate schools in the United States. So with that, I want to open the floor to questions. We have such a deep and growing relationship that's undergirded by these wonderful institutions, but it's not just those government-to-government ties. It is our economic ties and our people-to-people ties that keep us together. And those are the reasons that I feel that even though we've seen great growth over the last 20 years, I think we're going to see even greater growth over the next 20 years and more. So thank you.